Have you ever heard the phrase hurt people hurt people? In this video, I'm going to explain why this widely held myth about spiritual abuse is actually quite harmful and not necessarily true. My name is Dr. Felucia. I'm a licensed psychologist and owner of Skill Set Counseling, where I focus on the treatment of OCD, spiritual abuse, and cultural abuse. So, back to the topic at hand. Hurt people hurt people. Is this true? Well, I would say yes to a degree. Many people who have hurt other people have experienced hurt in some form or another. And sometimes this phrase, hurt people, is used as a way to help depersonalize the hurt that happened. In other words, don't take what happened personally. Don't take that person's behavior personally. It's their issue. And while I get those two perspectives, when this phrase is used in context of spiritual abuse or other types of abuse, it actually is quite harmful. So think about it. Do you know anybody who has never been hurt by somebody else? No, of course not. We all have experienced hurt at the hands of another person in some form or another. Yet, not everybody who's experienced hurt goes on to harm or hurt someone else in an abusive manner. And that's really important to remember. Dr. Ramani, who is a psychologist as well, and she also is an expert on narcissistic abuse, did a video on this. I don't recall the title, but she referenced people in history who had gone through incredible levels of pain and hurt at the hands of other people and went on to do great work that actually redeemed and helped other people. Examples are Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor, Martin Luther King Jr., Corrie ten Boom, and other people, right? Many of the people who have been champions of peace and who have made a lot of impact on the world have been hurt by other people and even abused, not only by people, by systems, right? And in my own personal and professional experience, I know a lot of people who've experienced enduring and just unspeakable forms of abuse, and yet they are the kindest, gentlest, and just most compassionate, empathetic people that I know. And so, no, it's not true that hurt people always hurt other people. Another thing I want to point out about this statement is that when people say hurt people, it is not addressing the root of the issue. To learn more about this, I'd encourage you to watch a video of mine about spiritual bypassing. And when you hear hurt people in the spiritually abusive system or environment, it's often used as a spiritual way of dismissing somebody else's legitimate concerns and problems. And so you'll hear this as a way of saying, hey, we live in a fallen world, people hurt each other, and this is what happens. Well, that might be true, but does that statement address the root of the issue? And no, it doesn't. It's a bypass. So that's something else to remember. Another thing I want you to remember when you hear this statement is that hurt people are making the choice to take out their pain on other people. They're making their own pain as a justification for what they're doing to others. And so if you've ever experienced any sort of abuse, something you may hear from the abuser is, a reference to the hurt that they've experienced. Maybe they didn't get, a particular need met in their childhood, and they're using that as justification for how they treat you. And so hurt people, first of all, I want to remember that not all people who hurt other people, let me rephrase that. Not everybody who's been hurt by someone goes on to hurt someone else. And people have choices in what they do. So if someone who has been hurt hurts someone else, it's because they choose to do that. Okay. I'm going to take a second here and ask if you have, if you're subscribed to this channel, please like and comment. And if you are not subscribed, please do so. By liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos, what it does is it helps get this information out to others like you who are benefiting from the content. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could just take a second to do any of those actions, I'd really appreciate it. So back to what I was saying about hurt people hurt people. There's an author named Leslie Vernick who gives a really good example about how you can choose to respond when you've been hurt. Okay, so let's say somebody was in a car accident. Let's say they were just walking on the side of the road, or they were driving and a car slammed into them, and now they are physically hurt. They could say, well, gosh, it's not my fault that I got hit by a car. And you're right, it's not. The pain that comes to you in life, you may not always be responsible for it or be in control of it, right? There are things that just happen to us just because they happen, and there's nothing we could have done about it. However, even though you were not responsible for the hurt that was done to you, you are still accountable and responsible for getting healing from that hurt. And so I want you to remember that the next time someone says, well, I was hurt, or someone else or that person themselves uses their own pain as justification for what they did. And I'm going to build on Leslie's example a little bit more. So let's say that person who has been in a really bad car accident says, you know what, this accident wasn't my fault. I'm not going to do anything about it because it's not my fault that I got hurt. And then they decide to get in a car, and their neck is really stiff and a lot of pain. Maybe they have like a broken ankle or sprained foot or something. And so they can't maneuver the car properly. They can't look behind them when they're driving, and they can't put their foot on the brake in time. And so because of all these factors, they now cause another car accident. Now imagine that person gets out of the car and, people are hurting and there's just all this chaos everywhere. And they're like, you know what? I was in an accident. I was hurt in a car accident. And so people who are hurt in car accidents hurt other people and they cause accidents, right? Doesn't that sound like hurt people hurt people? This person is saying, well, people who are in accidents cause accidents, right? Imagine if, a judge or a police officer used that to excuse that person's behavior. Do you think that it would happen, right? Would a judge say that the person who caused the accident was not at fault because they themselves had been in an accident? Absolutely not, right? But yet, spiritually abusive systems and other systems that perpetuate abuse do that. They are pretty much the judge in this situation, saying, you know what? Well, this person was hurt, and so therefore, because they were hurt, they're not responsible for the hurt that they caused you, right? And so so that's what tends to happen in these types of environments. And if you think about it, using that excuse, hurt people, denies accountability. At some point, someone is going to have to take responsibility and accountability for what they've caused in someone else's life. That excuse, hurt people, can be used by anybody and everybody, right? They can say, well, I was hurt by this person, right? And the person that hurt that person can say, well, I was hurt by this person. Everybody has been hurt by somebody else, okay? So it's really important to remember that when you hear that phrase, hurt people, yes, that person may have been hurt, right? But it is also their responsibility to manage their actions and their reactions to that hurt. So regardless of whether they were hurt or not, they are still responsible for their actions. Okay. And so that's really important to remember. And another thing that can happen, when people use this reasoning that hurt people as a way of justifying or dismissing abuse, when that happens, not only does it remove accountability from the person doing the hurting, but it also neglects other reasons why other people hurt people, right? So if you're familiar with narcissistic abuse or other types of abuse, there are people out there, and they don't necessarily have to have narcissistic traits, right? But there are people out there that just hurt other people because they can. They've gotten away with it and they continue to do it, right? And so people want to cause harm to other people for a variety of reasons, right? It could be out of their own sense of entitlement. It could be out of a belief that they're just superior to someone else. It could be due to a lack of empathy. It could be due to a lot of things. But the fact is, there are other reasons besides pain that people choose to hurt other people. And I want you to remember that. It's really important. Sometimes when the spiritually abusive environment or any type of enabler of abuse will say hurt people, they are doing this kind of as a way of removing the accountability from the person doing the hurting. They make it seem like, well, they didn't have a choice or they didn't mean it. And whether they meant it or not, they still cause that pain. And there are people that go out of their way, like I said, to cause hurt to other people. And so it's really important to remember that. So if there's anything I want you to take away from the video, it is that the phrase hurt people is not entirely true. And it is never, ever a reason for you to tolerate spiritual abuse, excuse spiritual abuse, or excuse or tolerate any sort of abuse in any form. So I'm going to say that again. Regardless of whether hurt people or not, the fact is that is never an excuse or a reason to tolerate abuse. Okay. So I want you to remember that. And like I said, I have some more videos that are related to this topic. There's a video on how people enable spiritual abuse that touches a little bit on this. And then there's also, like I mentioned, the spiritual bypassing video. Okay. And I'll put the links to those videos in the description box. So I would love to hear from you all in the comments. Have you ever heard that phrase, hurt people, hurt people? How did you react to that? And how did you feel that comment was used? Did you feel like it was used as a way to help you not take the hurt that you experienced personally? Or did you feel like it was just another way to dismiss or excuse abusive behavior from someone else? So I'd love to hear from you in the comments, as well as tips that you may have for other people as to how to deal with statements like this. For more information about how to book a free consultation with me, go to my website, skillsetcounseling.com. You can also click on the link in the description box, and that will take you to the website where you can book that consultation. Okay? I hope you have a wonderful day that is filled with peace. Bye-bye.